Okay, so we're going to talk today about how to manipulate integers. And when I say manipulate integers, what I mean is we are going to do our operations. And the first one we got to figure out is how to add, and then we'll get into some subtraction. So when we're adding integers, the first thing we have to understand is that we're just dealing with numbers. That is the basic thing, right? So when we're dealing with numbers, let's pretend that we have a real simple problem here. Let's do 3 plus 4. All right, so 3 plus 4. All right, now I'm not going to insult your intelligence. 3 plus 4 is 7. We know this. All right, but let's look at why. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a number line. Now with my number line, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to mark off. We're going to deal only in the positive. So let's say that this point here is 0. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's make this 10. And for argument's sake, let's also put our negative 1 over here, just to show that our number line does in fact go beyond 0 in the negative, and it ends us at negative 1 for right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to model this. And the way we're going to model this is we know that the first number is 3. So we always start at 0. 0 is like the origin, it's the beginning. So when we start at 0, we're going to move 3 in the positive direction, which means 3 to the right. So 3 to the right puts me here. And I use a line to represent this because that is the distance that we have traveled. We have traveled 3 units to the right. Then I'm going to travel, I'm adding, so that means I'm looking to the right, a positive 4 more. So we're starting at this 3, and we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And where we end up is actually at the 7, right? So we end up right here at positive 7. And so what we're showing is that when we have a positive 3 and a positive 4, they're working together. They're going together in the same direction. They're both positive, so they are increasing upon each other. All right. Well, we know this. Positive plus positive is positive. We get this. That's something that we started back when we started school and we started first learning how to count. And so what we want to do is we want to now show how this works in the negative. So let's take the exact same numbers. Let's say we had negative 3, and we're going to add to that negative 4. Now, we could hypothesize that since 3 plus 4 is 7, negative 3 plus negative 4 is going to be negative 7. So I'm just going to put that down there. And having done this problem before, right, I should know the answer, but don't want to lead you astray. And what we're going to do is we're going to recreate our number line again. So this time, I'm going to start on the opposite side, okay, because I know I'm moving in the negative direction. So this is my 0. Over here would be, oops, let's undo that. Let's say this is a 1. And over here, we're moving in the negative, so we have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. This would be our negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, and here should be negative 10. All right, so what's going to happen here is we are going to move from 0. We always start at 0, negative 3. So what that means is that we have to move in the negative direction. That means to the left, 3 units. And so we show that with our line. Now what that also does tell us is that when we're going to add to this, all right, we're going to go in the same negative direction. We're going to add a negative 4, which means we are moving still in that negative direction. We are adding negative 4. And so what we're seeing is that we're putting the two negatives together. They're working together in the negative fashion. So negative 3 plus negative 4 is going to be a negative 7. All right. Now, that's a great start. So we know that 3 plus 4 is 7. We know that negative 3 and negative 4 is negative 7. And so when everything is the exact same sign, it's really easy. Same sign, we're just going to add them together, and the sign is just going along for the ride. It's going to stay the same sign because they're working together. However, what happens if one is positive and one is negative? So this is a little bit different scenario for us. So let's pretend we're going to use the same numbers here. Let's say that we have negative 3 plus 4. Negative 3 plus 4. So what we have here is we're going to start with our number line. And I'm not really sure where this is going to go. So I'm going to start in the middle with my 0 here, 0. And we're going to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and negative 5. So we have a number line, and we know that we are going to start, at 0. And the first number tells me to go negative 3. So we're going to go left 3. That's negative 3. And the second number is telling us to go plus 4. So from that negative 3, we're going to increase by 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we end up at 1. So what we're saying is that if we have a negative 3 plus 4, we are in fact going to end up at a, extraneous mark here, but we're going to end up at a positive 1 because that's where we end up here. This is positive 1. So when I look at this, I think, oh, okay, I could draw this. So let's pretend for a second that we have 1, 2, 3 negatives. We're going to add to that 1, 2, 3, 4 positives. So this is another way to think of this is if I were to combine these together, I know that this negative and this positive, if I were to combine, would actually cancel to a 0. And this negative and this positive would combine together to be a 0. And this negative and this positive would combine together to be a 0, leaving only one positive. So there we have 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 is 1. So again, we're looking at this on a number line where we move 3 in the negative, 4 in the positive. We end up at 1 on the number line, okay? Or we could show this more concretely with counters or with symbols, and 3 negatives and 4 positives. Those negatives and positives cancel out. We're left with just a lonely positive, so it's positive 1. All right, well, I think I got a pretty good grasp of this, but let's try one more. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if we use some different numbers. And right now the smaller number was negative. All right, let's say the bigger number is negative. So let's put 5 plus, let's do negative 8. 5 plus negative 8. All right, so we're going to create our number line. And we need to number this. We're not really sure which direction this thing is going to go. So we're going to start with our 0 in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is 5 and negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. And here is negative 5. All right, so let's start with our first number, which is 5. So that tells me to go 5 to the right. So I start at 0 and I move 5 to the right. And this second number tells me to add negative 8. So that means from this 5, we're going to move 8 in the negative direction. Well, back to 0 is 5. Then there's negative 6, negative 7, negative 8. It's interesting. So now we ended up at negative 3. So this is actually going to equal negative 3. Well, we could draw this concretely again. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positives, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 negatives. And again, we're going to cancel out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these are going to be negative 3, right? So negative 3 is still the answer, whether we do it on a number line or we use a concrete fashion. Well, makes sense, but I don't want to have to always draw number lines because what if I had a really large number? So I'm looking for a pattern here. And the pattern that I'm noticing is that 4 and 3 are related to 1 because they have a difference of 1. 5 and 8 are related to 3 because they have a difference of 3. And I'm noticing that the symbol in front of the sum is the same as the symbol in front of the larger number that has the number with the larger absolute value. So 4 has a larger absolute value than 3, and it's positive. 8 has a larger absolute value than 5, and it's negative, and so is its answer. So here is my hypothesis. I bet you we could come up with a rule that if we took negative 45 plus 62, I'm betting that the rule would be this: the difference between 62 and 45. So 62 minus 45. That's what we mean by difference. We're going to subtract. So we do our regrouping and we end up with 17 as a difference. But we have to figure out what the symbol is going to be. And so we would say that negative 45's, it would help if I could draw that correctly. Negative 45 has an absolute value and 62 has an absolute value. The absolute value of negative 45 is 45, and the absolute value of 62 is 62. 62 is greater than 45. So we would say that this answer is going to be positive because 62 is positive. Likewise, if I were to do another example, let's say that we had an example of negative 13 plus 7. Well, we could say that 13 minus 7 is 6. So the difference is 6. And the one with the larger absolute value, negative 13, has an absolute value of 13, and 7 has an absolute value of 7, and 13 is going to be greater. So the answer here is going to be negative. And that would make sense because if I were to draw a number line, we would start at 0 and we would go backwards 13, then we move right 7, and we'd be at negative 6 again. So what that means is that we can come up with a rule. So here is our rule. The rule is this. We want to, when we add integers, we'll say, with, that's my with, different signs. Find the difference. And use the sign of the number with the greater, I'll actually write out with, absolute value. So when we're adding integers with different signs, find the difference. What does that mean? What does it mean to find the difference? It means to subtract. Subtract. And then use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. If you can do that, you're going to find the answer every time. Now, some of you might say, well, what happens if they're the same sign? Well, that was the easy one. Same sign, add them together, keep the sign, and you'll be right every single time. All right, guys. Hope that helps out. Thank you.